Perfectionism weighs heavily on young adults and parents navigating life's pressures. Join me for the next 2 episodes as we hear from remarkable young adults about their own struggles and the powerful tools they've used to move forward. Welcome to Success Reimagined. I am Dr. Amna Shabbir, your host on this journey to thrive at the intersection of ambition and wellness. In every episode, I'll help you challenge outdated definitions of success, discover practical tools and strategies for growth without compromising your well-being. I am so glad you've joined me. Let's reimagine what's possible together. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Ghalia Aamer, an entrepreneur, educator, and advocate for youth empowerment. She's the founder of TalkMaze, a globally recognized platform that helps individuals build confidence through public speaking and debate training. Ghalia's entrepreneurial journey started at just 13 when she launched Tune Tutors, creating opportunities for young people and making education more accessible. She's currently pursuing her Juris Doctor at Columbia Law School, focusing on startup law and entrepreneurship, and has been a G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance delegate, a board member for Junior Achievement, and part of Edmonton's Unlimited Innovation Growth Council. Her work has earned her numerous accolades, including Alberta's Top 30 Under 30, the Princess Diana Award, and recognition as Cansbridge Fellow. She has delivered 4 TED Talks, with her latest exploring the pressures of perfectionism, particularly as a daughter of immigrants. Ghalia, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
What does the word perfectionism mean to you if you were to just jump right in? Because I know that that's what drew me that specific topic when I heard your TEDx.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think to me, perfectionism means having a set of standards that are often impossible to meet and setting yourself up to those high standards, not just to succeed, but to do that without failing. And that perfectionism often for people, I think, is also the bare minimum, is to like hit that standard, constantly hit that standard, and to never fail to hit that standard. So I think it's a combination of both setting those unrealistic standards and then setting the expectation for yourself to meet those consistently.
I like that you also mentioned in there that you have to not leave any room for failing. Mm-hmm. It has to be consistent. It has to be you will reach that standard over and over again. So that's a really interesting perspective. You're incredibly accomplished. And at the start of your TEDx talk on perfectionism, you said, and I'm going to quote here directly, "I am overwhelmed by this burden to make up for centuries of lost opportunities for women. And this has led to this expectation that I need to be perfect. And it is this expectation of perfectionism that I continue to battle every day." That line gave me chills, and I could hear my inner voice immediately saying, yes, me too, like I'm raising my hand here. Can you expand on this for me?
That line is a very powerful reflection of how I often feel. And for me personally, it's because a lot of the spaces that I'm in, I know that I'm the first woman in my family to have these opportunities, whether that's moving to New York, where I live right now, going to law school, being even able to pursue the path that I want to do, being able to surround myself with the people I want in my life. There are so many options that I have in my life, and I've been able to design my life. And I'm only 23, and I've had so many opportunities to design my life up to this point, and I can't imagine how many more opportunities I'll have, all of which no woman before me has had. I have aunts, I have other family members who can't even enter Canada or the US because they just don't have the right passport. And it's something like as simple as that, but also that extends all the way to not being able to decide like what kind of education they want to pursue because they have to get married at a young age, or having societal pressures to follow a certain path. And I'm very, very grateful that my parents raised me the same way they raised my brother, and they encouraged education, and they enabled me to now pursue my dreams, study the education that I want, also pursue different opportunities like building my business, really do anything that I would set my mind to, and I can do that. And I have the ability to think and feel that I am able to do that. And I think just like having that thought or that feeling of, hey, if I set my mind to this, I can do this, I have the resources, that's such a privilege to be able to think that, to be able to do that. And so many other women. I mean, I even have cousins who have had that opportunities. I have cousins who've never left Pakistan because they don't have the right like passport to let them explore the world, or just financial limitations. Like, there are just so many limitations or stigmas that don't enable other women currently, but also, of course, my ancestors to have those opportunities. I think my grandma was married at the age of 15 or something like that. And so it limits opportunities, and girls are often raised to follow a particular path. And they still are. In many countries like Pakistan, girls are limited to certain opportunities. Whereas every single day, like, I wake up to beautiful views in New York City, and I'm like, wow, I cannot believe I get to experience this. I go to law school and I'm in class, and I realize that this is so much that I get to do. And that's amazing, and I'm really grateful for that. But on the other side of that, I think that's where the perfectionism comes in, because now I feel like I need to live every single day to the fullest for all of those women, for everyone who sacrificed so much, for my own mom who's done so much to make sure that I can be in this position. I feel like if I'm not making the most of every single opportunity, if I'm not succeeding in all of these places, then I feel a sense of guilt because I've been given so much, I have so much privilege, I have so many opportunities that I should really make the most of it, give back to the communities where I can. I think that's where perfection really comes into play, because of this awareness that there are so many people within my own circle and outside that haven't had the same opportunities that I do. And as a result, I feel guilty if I'm not making the absolute most of every single day in every single capacity. Even if I'm like going on a trip, I step into a plane, I look outside the window, I'm like, I cannot believe I get to be on a plane again. Like, there are people in the world that, people in my own family that have never been able to like travel outside their own country and be on a plane. And this is such an exciting opportunity. And I get to go on a plane so many times a year. And so I think I feel some pressure to just be so fully present, so fully engaged, and constantly on at times and showing up in order to meet those expectations. So it's a balance of balancing that privilege alongside that perfectionism is difficult.
That was so well articulated. And as you were talking about that, I remember being in a coaching session and I said those exact words to my coach. She asked me, what's going on with you? And I don't think I've ever shared this out loud or on any platform. I told her that I feel I have to live multiple lives in one life. I feel like in one day, it's so much that I have to do that. And personally, for me, that can be very overwhelming. And I felt like that was part of it, was playing into this almost like toxic achievement, go, go, go. So what do you do in these moments when you're having all these feelings and these emotions come up? What has worked so far for you?
I think I'm still working through it. I still have thoughts where I'm like, it sucks to have to battle all these expectations, but it's also sucks a lot more to not have these opportunities. And so sometimes, like, I find myself telling myself to just suck it up and embrace the fact that you can do all these cool things, even if there's pressure sometimes. But I also understand that's a very unhealthy mindset often to have, and like to just constantly have pressure to live up to the expectations. Right now, I'm in the midst of it because I am experiencing health issues, some slightly self-inflicted. I hurt my toe yesterday by dropping my laptop on it because I was just going through like multiple different things. I'm in the middle of final exams. I have wedding planning coming up with my wedding this summer. There's just like so much going on all at once. And I feel all this pressure to just constantly be on and show up. I had to be studying, but the weather was so nice. I'm like, I just need to get out and get some space, and stepping out for a walk and meditate. I don't think meditation has to be very formal. I think it can be as simple as like going for a walk and being present and making space for yourself to just think outside of all of your obligations and responsibilities. That helps me a lot. It also helps me a ton to surround myself with the right people. And I always notice that my mental health is different depending on who I'm around. And I just went on a fantastic trip to Peru with the Cancer Ridge Fellowship, which you had actually mentioned earlier in my bio. They're a group of individuals they're all Canadian students who are quite ambitious. They have similar values, very aligned, integrity, ambition. They're all working on projects that they're passionate about. And that group just really energizes me. And when I was on this trip, I felt so rejuvenated, even though I wasn't being productive per se. Like, I wasn't studying for school. I was very much on this trip present with them there. And that helped me just regain my alignment, just feel happier in general and feel aligned with myself because I was surrounded with the right people who have similar values to me. I just moved here to New York about a year and a half ago. So I'm trying to build that community here as well and find those people like I did have in Canada. But I think that the couple things that really helped me are, one, that like walking, get out, go be in nature, meditate, while I'm walking or whatever I'm doing. And then secondly, just surrounding myself with the right people. So if I'm surrounding myself with people who recognize that unhealthy standards are not great, for example, and they are also actively doing things like immersing themselves in nature, trying meditation, doing some sort of activity. I love it when people have really cool passions and they are just super into painting or something unique alongside having really crazy career goals. I think that just helps people feel grounded. And I myself being surrounded with people like that, someone who has a really cool hobby or they do yoga on the side and they allow that to like center themselves, that helps me feel inspired and also grounded because I can get that kind of energy from people. Whereas if I'm surrounded by people who have a lot of neurotic energy, which I often have myself, then I'm also going to feel that. So yeah, definitely the people I'm surrounded by makes a huge difference.
I loved what you just said because it's true. Our environment and the people specifically that we're hanging out with impact our well-being so much. Our dreams, our goals, our desires, what we focus on, and our perspectives, they're shaped by them. So I'm glad that you're using that as part of your well-being strategy and really helping curb those negative parts of the perfectionism that you're talking about, and stillness, going out in nature, adding those moments. I really want to echo this for our younger listeners because I tend to talk with a lot of individuals that are on the other side with parents and in those roles, and so refreshing to hear from somebody who is in the mid of it. You are right now, you're 23, you're in law school, you're doing all these things. How are you trying to stay level? So that's important. Thank you for sharing that. Going back to a little bit to your TEDx later on, that first statement really drew me in, and I'm going to read again from there. And by the way, for those who are watching and listening to this, please go watch Ghalia's TEDx. It's really inspiring. You say, because now I know that the sacrifices my parents and generations before them made were not so that I could be perfect, but so that I could have the opportunity to experience life to its fullest extent in ways that they could not even imagine. And so you mentioned a little bit about studying law at Columbia, which is not stressful at all, and your ongoing journey of success as a South Asian woman. How are you incorporating all of this and trying to stay level in specific to that part that comes up with achievement? Now, I know you mentioned hanging out with friends that have other activities and passions, and you are looking at world as a whole. I guess I would divide this question into two parts. Number one would be, there is this element of competition and comparison that really rears its head up, and not just in perfectionists, but frankly a lot in cultural ways too. I feel that the moment I was born, I was constantly compared to some cousin, and it has continued to this day. How do you balance that part? And then the second would be this, I have to do more, I have to do more. You can continue to do more. How are you slowing that part down?
Yeah, great question. I'll start off with the first around competition. I think, first of all, I'm so grateful to my parents. They have never compared me to anybody in that sense, especially growing up. I think that I had a lot of support with my parents. I still do. They're very, very supportive. They certainly had their expectations of me, such as going into medicine. They really wanted all of their kids to be doctors. And that was one that I didn't meet and I struggled with in terms of battling to explain to them why I was more interested in business and law. But overall, I've just had like really, really great support from them since I was young. And I've had support from them equally. Nothing about like my dad trying to raise me differently or treating me differently because I'm a girl. I know so many of my friends and families experience that. I know my own cousins often had those comparisons with me and my siblings, and I think it's so unhealthy. It also disrupts relationships. But I do think that despite having that support often from my parents and them telling me they're proud of me, they love me, and having those affirmations from both my parents and siblings and being so grateful for that, that doesn't limit the comparisons from outside the family unit, and still feeling sometimes like I'm not enough and I still have those. I think for me, one of those areas that has definitely been on like the path that I've chosen, whether that was starting my business young and a lot of people were focused on school. I definitely got comments, and I could just tell people were kind of thinking, like, why is she focusing on this? She's so young. Should we focus on her schooling? She's getting distracted. Oftentimes, things like that, or like moving away. Like when I moved to New York, I got comments of like the external community being like, how did your parents let you move away? You're a South Asian girl. I've never seen like South Asian girls that move away like a whole other country. You could have just gone to law school in your hometown. There's definitely a lot of external stigma that I encountered there, but also internally, right? Just like looking at other people and seeing what they're doing, especially in my community. Nobody in my community really kind of like went outside of their hometown to go study grad school, like go move to the US, even if they've gone across Canada. Like I didn't really know too many people that have gone there. I also just didn't have so many people who had been to law school. I was the first person in my family to go to law school. So sometimes when I think you're following a path that's unconventional within the community, it can feel like it might be the wrong path. I still sometimes will spiral and think like, did I just make the wrong decision by getting up and leaving, going to law school? Like, what if it doesn't work out? What if the space just isn't for me? Growing up, when I was interested in law, I did have comments like, people like us, we're not successful in law, and they're public facing professions. I've had this comment like, it's a public facing profession. It's not really meant for us because it's mostly white people, and it's like not the environment we can succeed in, whereas other maybe like technical but behind the scenes roles like engineering or medicine where you're not super in the forefront, then you're going to be more successful there because you're kind of behind the scenes. I'm very outspoken and I like to be more public facing. I think that's how you make a difference. And so sometimes those challenges can come into play, and I internally will start thinking like, maybe I should have just followed the safe path, the stable path, stayed at home, studied medicine, followed that one path. It's a very stable, it's a very clear path. You do well in life if you follow that. And I mean, there's little things like, I'll buy a meal in New York. I'm like, this is so expensive. Like, why am I here? I could have gone like 10 meals to go into this back home. And so like little things like that do sometimes to make me question and compare myself to the life that somebody else might have. But also I am very grateful that I didn't have some of the challenges that I know other South Asian children do growing up. I had incredible support from my parents, and I wouldn't be where I am without that at all.
So the second part of the question that I wanted to ask you was this part of toxic achievement. You have to keep going, going, going while you're in that phase where you're taking your career off. How are you trying to manage this pressure of perfectionism that sort of melts in with your identity? And how are you trying to keep that on track? And that would be like, I get to hear a lot of this. I'm not living your life right now, but this is what I get to hear from 20-some-year-olds when I'm talking to them. There's just so much pressure from like social media to accomplishment. Like whatever I do is just, it's average. I have to go up and over for my life to even mean something, like the significance. And this is what I'm getting from the average young adult. But for somebody who's also coming from a minority background, how are we supposed to make sense of this and still have some semblance of well-being?
It's a great question. Also something I'm still working towards. But for me, I think that life is about experiences. And I really cherish every experience in my life. And so I think that what I've learned to do much better now than I did before is to be present in my experiences and to fully experience life as it's happening rather than focusing on the future. I think that 5 years ago, especially throughout high school, I was very focused on like what's next. I think part of that stemmed from not being happy with the now at that time. Where I am now, I'm very, very grateful for everything I've accomplished, where I am, and like this stage of life. And I have lots of goals I'm working towards, but I've also learned to cherish the experiences that I have now. I think that losing my grandparents, both of my maternal grandparents in the span of 6 months last year, brought that into perspective as well. I lost my grandpa, who I was very close to, the day after my engagement celebration. And so it was a very like high-low type of thing, which I was surrounded with family. We were celebrating our engagement, and the next day my grandfather passed away. It was a really important part of our engagement process and everything. And I think that, and then I had lost my grandma just 6 months before that. I think that also reminded me of the fragility of life and how important those experiences are. Like, I was so grateful that my grandfather got to meet my fiance and his family a few months before he passed. And like, I'll always cherish that we had that moment together and I was able to be present for that. And so I think that there are so many goals I have, and there's so much I'm still working towards, but I have really learned to cherish the now. And I think the way I do that is to, if I'm with my family, I actively remind myself, and if I'm thinking about something about work, I'm like reminding myself, like, hey, this is literally what life is about. Like, your parents are here, they're healthy right now, you're with your siblings. Like, my siblings are gonna move on, they're gonna have their own lives. Like, my sister's married, she's moving to a different city. Like, there's things are changing in different ways in our lives. And so when I hike, we just a month ago, we were all together for a celebration, and like the five of us, my brother, sister, my parents, and I were all in the room. And we don't always get that anymore because I moved away, my sisters moved away. And so I just reminded myself in that moment, I'm like, hey, like this is it. Like this is literally what I'm living my life for. Like this is the experience I cherish. So be present, enjoy this time. And I also take action where I can now. Like it was my mom's birthday at the end of January, and I just really felt empty and I wanted to go home and I wanted to be with her. And I could book a ticket, go home, and I did that. I said I was thinking, and I remember having like a lot of work to catch up on and do that weekend, but I was like, I want to go home and be with my mom, and I could do that. So why would I not do that? And I know it's gonna be a bit tiring to like get home, but I have the capability to go. I can like I'm able-bodied. I can go. I have the financial means. I can book that ticket and go. I have the weekend. I can go. Sure, like work. Okay, I'll do some work on the plane. I'll catch up. But I made that intentional decision to just go and surprise her for her birthday because I feel like I'm more able to embrace those moments and be present. Whereas I think maybe like a past version of me would have said no. Like I need to work. Are you crazy? Why would you go for a weekend to go surprise her? Right? It doesn't make any sense because at a weekend I have to travel 10 hours to get home, 10 hours back. It's like 2 days I'm back home. It doesn't really make sense to go for 2 days. But the current me is like, no, like I'm going to go and cherish that experience because I want to be there with my mom on a special day. And that 1 day or 2 days I do get to be with her means more to me than like the hassle of going there and I'm doing all that and maybe like sacrificing a little bit of work time. So yeah, I think that's helped me is being present in the moment and then also taking intentional actions to do that. And I don't think an intentional action has to be booking a flight. I think it's also as simple as going for that walk or reminding yourself when you're in that moment with your friends or family, remind yourself like, hey, like, why am I thinking about that assignment that's due? Or why am I thinking about that work project? Can I just be present for this moment? Because I'm never going to have this moment again. And this exact moment, like I should be present, enjoy that, make memories, and experience it to the fullest. So I think that also relates to what I talked about in my TEDx talk is about experiencing life to the fullest and having the freedom to experience it. And that's really like my parents have sacrificed so much for me so that I can have these moments and experience it. So even when I'm here, like sometimes I'm like annoyed about law school. I'm like, oh, why do I have to go to this class? Then I'm like, I literally get to go to Columbia Law School and go to this class that I would have loved to do years ago. And there's so many other people around the world who never had this opportunity and would love to have it. Like even if this class is going to be boring, I want to go and embrace it and just like be present and try to take in as much as I can from it. And I think that being present has helped me a lot in overcoming that because if you have the perfectionism alongside the presence, I think it helps you be grounded a little bit more because you're not constantly thinking about everything else that needs to happen to be perfect. You're just reminded that like this moment as it is right now is perfect in itself. And like if perfectionism is really what I'm about, like I want to do so well, the best thing I can do for myself is to be present and cherish this moment. And I don't think I'll ever regret being present in that moment.
I just want to take a deep breath and soak all that in. And I would encourage everyone to go back and listen to that bit because you have beautifully articulated the power of presence as such a core missed opportunity that we're all going through. We're just either thinking about all the things that we did wrong in the past and what are all the things that we're going to do in the future and we're going to be happy when. And so I love that you were able to celebrate your mom and what a wonderful surprise. Now as a mother, I would love when my daughters are grown up and they would come back home and surprise me in that way. Shifting gears a little bit, Ghalia, you have been doing such amazing work in terms of helping youth develop public speaking skills. I feel that is such a public service message that you're doing. It's great. Where do you see perfectionism creeping into communication skills and confidence building when it comes to young adults today?
Yeah, another great question. I think perfectionism shows up all the time. It's in the pause before someone speaks, the ums, the filler words, but more importantly, it's the choosing not to speak. And I think that's the most dangerous of it all, is because you're so afraid of being perfect. You're so afraid of being confident before you speak that you don't speak. And I've seen this happen with children. I saw it growing up with my peers. Like I would go to a speech tournament, and I remember that a few of my peers went to that speech tournament and they didn't place well. Like they placed near the bottom of the rankings. And then I remember one of them saying, "Oh, I'm just never going to do a speech tournament again because this isn't for me." And that I think stems from perfectionism, right? Like these rankings in high school speech tournaments are so subjective. You can get last place one day, get first place the next. It's just arbitrary judging. And that doesn't mean you're not good at it. And of course, even if you're not good at it, you can always get better at it. But it's that perfectionism that shows up and brings in like the fear of messing up, the fear of failing, to then not doing it. And I think that the cost of not speaking, not training your voice is just so high. It's high in that you're sacrificing the ability to stand up for yourself, but more importantly, you're also sacrificing this ability to be a voice for others and to make a difference in the world, because your voice is like really the tool to change lives in so many ways. And you can do that just with the power of your words. I mean, you're doing this with your podcast, right? Like you're using your voice, you're bringing other people, you're creating a space and platform, and there's so much you can do with your voice, as simple as the way that you speak to people around you, whether or not you choose to speak up at that networking event you're in, whether or not you choose to stand up when your boss isn't being kind to you. Like there are so many different spaces. And then you do the same for the people in your life. Like, are you going to stand up for your loved ones? Are you going to stand up for your kids? And it's really your voice that is so important in all of that. But if we fear perfectionism, like we want to be perfect before we speak, then oftentimes that results in just not speaking, avoiding every opportunity, like avoiding public speaking, not raising your hand in class, not going and speaking. And I think that that's just so costly. And that's why I started Talkmaze as well, is to help young people particularly. And now we work with adults too, but to help people recognize the power of their voice. I think that's often the first step, is like just recognizing how important it is. Oftentimes people, in masking that and taking a step back and not speaking, they also subconsciously tell themselves that it's just not that important. I can do other things. I'm just not going to be good at speaking, so I'm not going to do that. The first step is like understanding why it's so important for you to work on your voice, but also to do it and without a fear of failing. Like the best way to improve public speaking is to just do it, to go and speak, to be part of that interview. And it's okay if you have that hesitation, those pauses, those filler words, because what's worse than those filler words, the pausing, the hesitation, is to not speak at all. And how you'll get better is to actually practice. And practice is very simple. It can be in front of a mirror every single day. It can be when you go and order food outside. It can be talking to a stranger, talking to a new coworker. There's so many different ways you can practice that on a day-to-day. But if you let perfectionism hold you back, then you're not going to do that. And unfortunately, I believe this stems from our school system, because in our education system, we're not taught to speak up, and oftentimes we're shunned for using our voices. I remember when I was 5 years old, we would be told to walk down the hallway single file with our hands up to our mouth like this. And you're told, you're conditioned to be quiet, you're conditioned to not speak up unless it supports the system. And if you do speak up when you're not supposed to, you get shunned, you get a timeout in class, or you have to be following the rules when you're speaking up. And as a result, we often see that children, especially as they get closer to middle school age, they are more afraid of speaking up. And then that just stems into adulthood if they don't get support. And I am very grateful to have had that support, and I was able to join the debate team when I was 12, and that helped me get out of that shell and build my voice and feel both recognize the power of it and also be able to use the tools to build it. But I wish that everybody could have that, because it's the one tool that we all can use to make a difference, to stand up for ourselves and feel more comfortable and confident. And you can 100% do it without being perfect. You don't need to have all the perfect voice, the perfect public speaking skills. You'll only get better if you choose to fail. And like my first few TEDx talks, like please don't watch them. I actually don't really like them. Like I kind of hate that they're still on there. It's like one of them is when I was 16, and it's not my best public speaking. But I think it's good too, because it shows people that, hey, like that's like 7 years ago, and I was just getting started. And so now you can see my more recent one, which I'm more proud of. And so you only get better if you actually go out and do it and take on that opportunity.
Well said. The thought that came up to my mind was technology and where that comes in terms of when I'm seeing young adults interact with each other, and frankly, even older adults. If we can avoid using our voice or words, it almost feels like we're leaning towards that. If this can be explained in a text or an emoji, I'm just going to go for that and not really use my voice. I remember 2 weeks ago, went to the restaurant and I made my daughter talk to the servers, talk to the hostess, and she was so not having it. And I said, that's something I would appreciate if you could start doing. She's 8 right now. And she's like, Mommy, why did you make me do it? That was so embarrassing. So where do you feel that maybe our phones are and technology, or even expectations that are now put on by social media, where when you're watching these highly curated reels and all the ums and the ahs are removed, how is that impacting young adults and really anyone's ability to go forward and talk?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. There's definitely a way to hide behind technology, and you can do that. But we often get this question with talk maze where people ask us, like, why do you coach virtually if you could do it in, like, isn't it better to coach public speaking in person? And I think that virtually is actually the way to go now, especially with the world that's changing. Oftentimes, like, your kids, by the time they're 18 and 19, I'm sure the world will be even more virtual, and like they'll be doing so many virtual speaking opportunities, and oftentimes those still translate exactly the same into in person. So I think that despite technology taking over, communication is more important than ever, and particularly because there are tools like AI taking over. And so in order for humans to compete against that, like what we really have is like that one thing that AI can never have is like our emotions, our communication, the way we connect with people. And so it's more important now than ever to be able to do that. If you want to be in a leadership role, build a team, you need to be able to connect with people, and communication is the key to that. And so I think it's very critical. And then in terms of seeing videos and like comparing yourself potentially with people online, like understanding that, well, first of all, like technology edits, like all of that, like filler words are being removed. People are not necessarily perfect, but those are edited. That's edited content online. And instead of taking that as like, oh, I could never be that perfect, just practicing yourself, like see where they're at. Right? I just understand that there are filters here, but also see that as an opportunity to do better yourself and practice. Take even what we do sometimes, like watch a video and like see what they're doing in there. What can you learn from that instead of comparing yourself with that? Learn from that and just really practice. Take on the opportunities online too, even if you can just have your camera off in a meeting and not really participate. Turn your camera on and ask a question, and practice that virtually too. Like there are so many skills about virtual communication that translate as well into in person, but also they're so unique sometimes to virtual. So if you can learn the skills to speak virtually, I think that you can also do really well in person. And oftentimes there's similar skills. So I would say leverage the tools that you have. And there are a lot of cool tools to help you build those skills and practice communication, but also do not hide behind technology, because the way to level up and like be successful is to really embrace that human component, which is communication and connection. And that comes from using your voice and practicing it.
Well said. Well said. Earlier to the question before the last, you mentioned a little bit about failure playing into that friend that you've mentioned didn't want to go back and join the debates again. And how do you handle failure?
I think that I still struggle with perfectionism. And so oftentimes I'll rephrase that. I don't think I handle it well in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
I think I handle it well in the long term. And so short term, what I do is I often get very upset, like have self-doubt spirals, probably like spend the whole day being quite upset, like thinking that I'm just doing the wrong things. Again, like not having conviction in my decisions, feeling like a failure because this one thing didn't work out, everything else is also likely going to fail. And just like spiraling, I tend to do a lot. But that's usually constrained to one day for me. Like I'll just have like a bad day, and then I get back up and I recognize the spiraling. I often journal, especially when I'm not in a great mood. Journaling helps me a lot. Just like write down my thoughts. And then bouncing back from that is often for me very much about like it's a new day. And so I sleep on it. Next day I'm like, it's a new day. Like that one doesn't matter. You know, growing up, my mom always told us this one thing, which she said it in Urdu. The translation to English would be like, the night is gone, it's a new day, so we're not going to worry about what happened the night before. And so for me, oftentimes, like in the short term, I get very irritated, I'm frustrated with myself. And I think what I need to do better there is maybe grounding myself more. But I also think it's okay to just feel, like just let yourself feel. And I do just let myself feel in the short term, like let myself be upset, let myself cry if I need to, have some cake, just be upset in that moment, but also not let myself carry that over to the next day. So the next day, I will usually get up, focus on the more positive aspects. If I need to address anything about that failure, then do a bit of a debrief myself and then move forward with the day. But I think that what helps me with managing that is letting myself feel one, and then also not letting it carry over so that it affects me long term.
That was an excellent breakdown because I want to highlight it so much. Yes, you get to have the bad day, the bad moment, the bad hour, and not suppressing it, brushing it away, or pretending everything's okay and continuing to have like this, almost like this numb out. So allowing yourself to move through the emotions, but almost setting like this timer for yourself, like this next day I get to, here we go, and a lot of perspective taking from the wonderful experiences your mother has shared with you. That was excellent. So I will close out with this one question. What advice would you give to a younger child of immigrants who feels the unspoken internalized pressure of being flawless?
Yeah, I sometimes wish I could give myself some advice when I was younger. To summarize it, I would say it's like you're not a project, you're a person. You don't need to prove your worth with perfect grades or awards or resumes. And that a lot of that perfectionism often stems from unrealistic expectations that just can never be met, such as never failing, for example, or consistently showing up every single day. Like, it's just not human to do that. And if these pressures are coming from your parents, which often they are for children of immigrants, I think that reframing what those pressures are and why they're coming from our parents is super important. And when you reframe those, and reframing them for me helped me a lot. Like, why do my parents want me to become a doctor? Or why do they want me to stay home for school? Because they had so much instability. They had to move across the whole world to pursue their career. And then even after moving across the whole world, my mom still had to work so hard to actually be recognized as a doctor. And they've had to do so much, live in financial instability, there's social instability, so many difficulties they've encountered. Having English as a second language, all of these, that all they want for their children, because they love them so much, is to have stability, to have freedom. And that's why those expectations are coming from them. And so if what really makes you happy is to do something other than what the pressure is coming from, recognize that your parents will likely actually be very happy if you end up being happy. Because what they want for you is to have stability and happiness. And if you think you can achieve that in another way, like, that's exactly what your parents want for you. Even if they might not understand it in this moment, they will be happy for you. Like, my parents, despite certain battles of me when I wanted to pursue business in undergrad, things like that, like, at the end of the day, they've always supported me and been happy at the end because they realize that I'm happy and, like, I am living the life that I want. And also I am, like, I do have, like, that level of stability. I'm not going off and doing something that wouldn't give me, like, would put me in a very similar position to what they had in those struggles. I am still taking advantage of the resources I have and building a life for myself. And so I think the advice I would give is to focus on yourself as a person, understand your values, and also have empathy to the people around you if they are bringing expectations or pressure for you, and recognize that you don't need to immediately or ever really satisfy their expectation. Like, it's you, it's your life, you're the person. You don't need to prove your worth. And also, as you are separating yourself and your identity from that, also just recognize and empathize with people like your parents who likely have done a lot for you, and they while you might not agree with exactly what they're saying or their expectations for you, what helped me a lot in empathizing with my parents or other people in my life who have provided those expectations or standards is to understand where they're coming from, why they're doing that. And when you recognize that they're coming from a good place because they love you and they want what's best, and they just have different lived experiences than you, and that their lived experiences is the reason why you're here, I think that just helped me put so much into perspective and recognize that I can both follow my path and the path that I want to follow, while understanding and empathizing with the people in my life and still continuing to love them and support them at the same time as supporting my own dreams and being my own person and following my own path.
Thank you so much for your time and for being here. Please share with our listeners, how can we support your work, learn more about you?
Of course, thanks so much. Definitely connect with me through my initiative, Talkmaze. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, wherever you're at, it's at Talkmaze.
This episode is part of a special series in my budding book project on unmasking perfectionism. You might believe you don't have the time or energy to focus on yourself, but this is exactly the right time to get serious about your well-being. You don't have to do it all alone. I'm here to help. If you enjoyed this video and are ready to take the next step, head over to dramnashabbir.com where you'll find free resources you can access right away. The website link is below. Let's get started on your path to thriving. You might believe you don't have the time or energy to focus on yourself, but this is exactly the right time to get serious about your well-being. You don't have to do it all alone. I'm here to help. If you enjoyed this video and are ready to take the next step, head over to dramnashabbir.com where you'll find free resources you can access right away. The website link is below. Let's get started on your path to thriving. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. Just a quick reminder, while I am a physician, I'm not your physician, and nothing in this podcast is medical advice or any kind of professional advice. Everything shared here is based on my personal experiences, and the views expressed are entirely my own. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love for you to rate, review, subscribe, and share the show with anyone who might need a little inspiration to redefine their own version of success. I'll see you next time. Until then, keep reimagining success one small step at a time.